Good evening. I am Lisa Feeley, your host for An Accountable Catholic. As followers of Jesus and believers of a great God, we need to commit to being more accountable. And tonight, I have a very good guest on with me. He'll be talking about moral leadership, which is really an important topic tonight. So why I guess it's important to pay attention to being a moral leader, and why moral leadership really is important on how we live our lives, whether it's our career, our loved ones, our community, etc. So tonight, let me introduce our guest, Denton Wilson, and I'm going to have him share his journey. But before he does, I'd like to say that I've known Denton for a few years. And one of my favorite things about Denton is that he's really a man when someone is seeking to have real conversations. This is the kind of gentleman you'll hear from in a minute that really is very authentic. And so when someone is really in need, really trying to learn, Denton's really been a tremendous friend and a right kind of person, I guess, that you want to go to for that kind of leadership. So when they're desperately seeking real conversations, to me, Denton, that's the kind of gentleman you are. So welcome to our Carolina Catholic Radio and Accountable Catholic. And why don't you share with our audience kind of your journey, so who you are. I know you're obviously a leader in the community as a senior executive, but share a little bit about your background and your journey.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for the opportunity. Just truly a passionate topic for me. And as you know so well, that passion is not something I'm short of. So truly thank you for this moment. I'm just a man that is proud as I can be, just to have the opportunities that I've been blessed to have. I have a career that has given me the opportunity to touch many, many teams, build strong foundations, be vulnerable, be real, be holistic in the way that we actually care and share the journey with each other. And I hope that is being able to be presented tonight in a way in which it shares that we all have an inward true north, and sometimes we just need to find it. And mine is just not terribly different probably from a lot of folks. I left home very early in life at 15, and I had the decision to make. I can either use that as a crutch, or I could use it as a momentum to always try to do my best to make each day better. I love the term betterment. Everything I touch, I just really want to touch and make it better. And I think that comes a lot to the topic that we're talking about here today, is that moral leadership really comes back to your ability to shine inwardly and outwardly about what keeps you grounded. I take a lot of pride that I've been grounded most of my life, I believe. And I'm proud of that, to be frank with you. So it's a long journey of touching lots of folks. I'm having lots of folks touch me to help guide me in the process. And I think a lot of that has to do with a little term that I love to do study on, which is courage, because we all need to have courage. And Lisa, at some point in this talk, let's talk about what the definition of courage is. I think it's an interesting topic, if you don't mind. And it comes down to that word of leadership. And leaders are natural born people that have this passion to really make a difference, not just one-off, but holistically. And mine is, I've never really wanted to make a project or a team better. I really want to make the industry, the embodiment of the environment around me, better. And that takes a grounding of all aspects of your life, from your families to your friends to your health to your work environment, to make sure that you're within balance. And I take a lot of pride in trying to be one of those men. I would call it, I wear a Fisher of Men bracelet, right? Because I believe that is part of my task in life, is to put my arms around those in a moment of vulnerability, to really say, I'm here with you, and I'm willing to listen loudly. And let's talk about what it takes to really make the right step in your life, and what kind of support you need, and how we can motivate and praise people because they need it.
Yep. Well, you hit on a lot of wonderful things, and that's exactly what I'd love to talk tonight and help, I guess, our audience really understand in the big picture of accountability, right? So being an accountable Catholic, we're an accountable Christian, and you brought up some great words in there. One is courage, and I would like to say that courage and vulnerability, right, are all a component, as our accountability, of moral leadership, right? And I believe, I guess, and you and I know we chatted about that, we believe really that the ultimate goal in life, right? Life's purpose is not just, hey, I'm going to only help myself, right? I'm all about me. And especially in a career, right? Especially like you've had a fantastic career. I've been blessed to have a good career. So if you're called to be a leader, especially in a big business environment, let's say, or whatever, why is moral leadership, I guess, important to you? And where does courage play in and vulnerability play in? Because a lot of people would just say, well, Denton, it's just about, getting ahead, right? And putting yourself first and making sure you don't mess up anywhere. But that's not what life's about.
No. So let's get to the root of it. Words matter, right? Good. And so when you break it down into words, you look at moral leadership almost as a moral compass, right? Finding that true north. And when you take moral and leadership and you put them together, you're atoning to a person who can be seen and present themselves as somebody that people are willing to follow based on a good segment of ethical beliefs and actions. Okay. And so then you roll into that words matter, of courage. And I love doing research. I get up every day and I try to do research. I do my daily reader, I do research, and I try to look at for areas that I can actually improve the environment of my teams. Because the folks that struggle in today's world of grounding themselves are the ones that really focus more on the technical aspect of life instead of the environment of life, the journey, right?
So they're checking the boxes.
Yes, Lisa, and they're confused on that definition of joy versus happiness. Happiness is fleeting. You can get it one piece at a time. You've done it. You have to go find another one. Where joy is a journey and it's a continuum. And so that's what we're looking at from a good leader, from a moral leader. You're looking for somebody that you can follow consistently and understand that we're all going to be better together because we are together. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to courage, when I did research on courage, I thought courage was an internal segment of who we are. And what I found was courage is directly linked to the people that you surround yourself in your circle of life. The stronger the people around you are, the more courage you will have. So you think about that. If you don't have a good basis of friends and fellowship around you, you're kind of on an island. And now your courage is kind of like a roll of the dice. That's not how we want to live.
No.
So it really is about finding the measures of moral belongings based on how you want to be seen, which means you need to know how to define your own success, what your own drivers are, and how you want to measure yourself. Because if you can't measure yourself first, then why would other people want to follow you?
And that's going to be our next show as well. So we're going to talk about measuring success a little later. But to your point there, talk a little bit about, and if you don't mind using yourself as an example too, how does one go about finding that value, like what I value, I guess? And I guess I think of the younger leaders, right? Denton, you and I have been around the block a little. Right. So maybe those 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds that are just coming into their career, how do they start defining what I really value, how I get courage, how do I make myself vulnerable without, a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to be vulnerable because then people just take advantage of me or something.
That's right. And that is a reality, okay? Because some people out there will, and you have to be able to find the folks that you can actually have the moment of, so there's trust and there's vulnerable trust. Everybody uses two of the most favorite buzzwords today are collaboration and trust. And I really love willingness to collaborate and vulnerable trust. Because trust is, Lisa, that I know what you commit to, you will do, and you know what I commit to, what I will do. But vulnerable trust is finding the people that truly have your back. Because if you find people that have your back, then you can actually take a breath and you can actually go out and take a chance or raise the bar or really present yourself as, in today's world, even on my project teams, it's an interesting study of the youth. Because they're so proud of the steps they're getting early to achieve that they won't raise their hand in a moment of need because they think it's going to be shown as a weakness. And that raising your hand is a show of strength. And so if you don't have people in your life that you can actually raise your hand and say, I need your shoulder, I need your ear, find them. They're the most important people you'll find in your life.
I love it. I love it. And so going back to how did you, maybe when you were younger, kind of wake up and go, well, here's what I value. Do you end up kind of writing it down? I think one of my favorite books was Purpose Driven Life. I mean, if you don't have your purpose and you can't figure that out, it's kind of hard to bring others into the fold.
Yeah, so it's an interesting, and I'll try to do it very short and very unemotional because I could get too emotional with it. But when I left home at 15, there really was an opportunity that I knew what I didn't want. So mine was pretty easy on the front end. I knew that I didn't like to be treated that way. I'm a better person than that, and I want to treat people better than that, and I won't stand for that. I had to take that moment, and God blessed me with an opportunity at 15 to meet somebody in high school that I really saw as being a good person, but was hanging out with the wrong people, and I needed a friend. So that young man, I went home one night with him. I met his family, and it was God's blessing to put me on their doorstep 44 years ago, because that 7-foot tall man became the guiding light for me as a Christian, because he's the most Christ-like man I ever met in my life. He was so gracious in how he communicated. He was non-judgmental. He was always there for me. And it wasn't blood. It was just a man that believed in me.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I believed in his son. Long story short, we built a beautiful relationship. And as you know, Lisa, 3 years ago, I moved from Texas out to North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that man, I wanted to be the last man that I saw when I left Texas, because I wanted him to sign my Bible, right?
Wow.
To continue that. And so I did. And then 4 weeks ago, we found out just out of the blue that he was going to pass on us. Mm-hmm. And a very humbling moment for me that showed, I hope, who I am inside me as a man, that I got there just in time. His desire was for the 5 children to show before he passed at home so he could die in peace. He only had 4 children plus me. So I was blessed he considered me a child, first off. And I was the last one to show. And when I showed, I went down the hall to where he was, put my arms around him, prayed with him, told him how proud I was of his journey. John 14, years ago, he read it, that basically said God was going to hold a place for him in heaven, for him not to worry that he will come back and get him. And from that moment on, that man had the most gracious foundation of, I'm a Christian, I'm taken care of, now just go do the right things always. And it set a tone with me. I was so proud of that man in his life. And I guess, Lisa, I didn't realize how proud he was of me. Okay.
That's
because
phenomenal.
I did get there. I did pray with him. I told him that all the kids were there and now he could die in peace. And he died 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
But then after that, his wife came and asked me, she needed to talk. And I said, good. And she said, he asked me to officiate his funeral.
Wow.
Okay?
Yep. See?
So it's just one of those that you do need to make those real connections. And there's not a lot of those. They're not the norm, but they're absolutely there. Right. But they're there because you're willing to show who you are, that you can actually stand on your own measure, right?
Right.
And so with my men's group, we do the friends, the family, the faith, the health, and the work. And we measure those against where we would believe we are. And then we ask our spouses to measure us how they see us in our journey, to see if we're in balance of those 5 measures. And if we're not in the balance of those 5 measures, then we need to adjust and be held accountable. Because if one of them's weak, it hurts all the others.
Right.
So that's, leadership to me is a tremendous aspect. I'm a huge believer that you cannot be a good leader, much less a moral leader, unless you're a good person first.
No, I think that's fantastic. So you found that gentleman, which is incredible. So would you tell someone who's younger and maybe they say, but then I don't have great people around me. I didn't really have any direction. Maybe their parents passed early, something happened, but you can step back and kind of make sure you're finding someone who is going to have good values in life, right? Who has good moral character to kind of follow, right? Or talk to and get to know.
Absolutely. And to further it, you said sometimes we just need a plan. We always need hope is not a plan, right?
No.
And so if you sit down on a piece of paper, and I love writing very much, so I'll tell you this. When my son was 6 years old, I was that type A person would come home from work and I couldn't adjust and be that man that child needed. Okay. And so what I found was, as I started writing my son notes about how proud I was or anything I needed to say, so I could get it on paper based on how I wanted to say it. He could read it based on the age that he was. I slipped it under his pillow, and then we had real conversations. And my son's 29 now, and my son will tell you he has every note I ever wrote him. So we found a better way to communicate in a vulnerable way so we could have real conversations. But it really starts with putting down on a piece of paper, what are the measures for you that you will be proud of? How will you hold yourself? How will you engage other people? What type of people are important to you? And unless you put that on a piece of paper, then what's the guiding plan that's going to keep you in your true north?
Right. And with all the noise in today's world, right, coming at us from every angle, if you don't have something, in my mind, if you don't have a plan, and you and I talked about that when I wrote my book, An Accountable American, you have to have something you value, and you have to have a plan to kind of keep going true north, right? And to me, that plan's got to also be based on honesty and integrity, right? And you said it with regards to being vulnerable, and that's, you have to be honest, right?
So Lisa, I build really big, phenomenal teams, and that's what I do for a living. I build big teams to build these very special places.
That's right.
When I found that if I would atone to the needs of the people instead of the technical needs of the project, then I built much better projects. Okay. And one of those opportunities came when you do an interview for one of Denton's really big projects. You have to do Denton's 18 favorite words, which are the words to me that drive the discipline of a good team: honesty and trust and good communication and all that. And you have to put them in order by importance and tell me why, because I want to see where you're grounded, because there's a huge difference between technical smart and people smart. And the thing that is starting to miss a little bit in our society these days is the atonement to the needs of people. And what drives teams is the environment and the people aspect of it. The number one thing that we don't get more than anything that we need is praise. It's worth more than money these days.
Right. Right. And I was just going to say, and we're going to take a quick break here, but I'll end with a thought that what you're telling me is if that person just puts how much we're being paid and how much money I'm making first, that's not the right answer.
Right.
All right. We'll come right back after the 30-second break. Thank you very much, and stay with us.
Carolina Catholic Radio is excited to announce an alliance with Lisa Feeley, author of An Accountable American. Her new book offers a blueprint to every person who wants to embrace how to be accountable. Learn how positively to impact your life and the lives of anyone around you. 50% of the book profits will be donated to a local 501c3 Catholic charity, including Carolina Catholic Radio and those affiliated with us. 2020 was a tough year for many people. Consider donating to charity by buying a copy of An Accountable American, just $20 on our website. Achieving accountability is a great way to start the new year. If you want to learn how to achieve enlightenment, peace, and prosperity, this is a great start. Now back to An Accountable Catholic Radio show.
All right, welcome back to An Accountable Catholic, and Denton Wilson is rejoining me to finish talking about why moral leadership is really important. So there's a lot of leaders out there, Denton, and we've been talking, for 15 or so minutes already. Is there anything you can do to summarize and say, boy, if there are 5 things that I could, or 6 things, or 3 things that you could really get a message out to, and I'm going to say, although everybody needs it, let's concentrate on that, 20 to 30-year-old. Maybe they've not had the best life. And obviously in today's world, it's so easy to be a victim, right? And it's so easy to point fingers. Well, it wasn't my fault. That's my boss's fault, or that's my colleague's fault. What's it really going to take to make sure that you are a good moral leader?
Consistency. And the consistency for good moral leadership is being grounded in who you are to start with.
Okay.
In that age that you're talking about, Lisa, 20 to 30-year-olds, that's an amazing time in a person's life. That's when you're really starting to understand the professional life versus your personal life and how to separate the two. There's every other Thursday, I do a little men's group. It's not a prayer group much as a life group. And we've been studying a book. It's called The True Measure of a Man. And I don't think it should just be the true measure of a man. It should be the true measure of a person.
Good.
And it talks a lot about this moment to where somebody that's young and full of energy and really starting to grow in their career are happy. And all of a sudden something changes and they're not so happy anymore. And it comes down to that aspect or an apex of moral leadership and standing for what you believe that's always made you happy. And you start adjusting to the pressures around you, the business pressures. You start making decisions based on how your peers are looking at you instead of what's in your heart. So consistency, stay true to your heart. Know that the things that really made you the person that you are, and if you're proud of those, protect those. Don't let the world invade those. Always look to make something better. Always try to find. That's why I wear this Fisher of Men's bracelet even at almost 60 years of age. I need that frequent reminder that I can fall off course, and I need people to hold me accountable. I have some folks on my team, a very specific one who I care about a lot, that has a hard issue with this. And so when he struggles, because he doesn't want to come to me, I'm his boss, right? He wants to find the ability to go out and find somebody that he believes that will hold him accountable. Find the people in your group that are willing to be your true partners in life and hold you accountable. I was blessed. I've been married to the same rock star lady for 35 years, and I don't know how I'd be sitting here today without her, because she knows that there's days that I beat myself up. And that would be the fifth one. Stop beating yourself up. Okay? Be proud of yourself. Praise yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, you are a good person. God loves you. Right?
Well, we all got God given talents. God gave us great talents to use. We have to be thankful for that grace.
Now, Lisa, as we know in today's world, well, I'll tell you what, if you just turn on the news, you just shake your head. Yep. You don't read the newspaper anymore. Where do you find the real basis of what matters and what is real? And that, to me, for a 20 to 30-year-old today, Lisa, that's got to be just a very hard balance. It's almost got to be an art these days.
Right.
And that's why I find a lot of, I read a lot these days, because I find a lot of education in books, way more than I'll ever find on the news or on the radio sometimes. Right. I mean, if you go to something that you trust, listen to it. I love some blogs, but as far as the news, no. There's a book that I really enjoy having my team read. It's called The Ideal Team Player, because it has found the key solution to being hungry, have an appetite to really engage, have that passion. Humble, always be humble. Have humility in your heart, have empathy in your heart, and smart. And it's a book based on giving very specific definitions of those three. And by the way, smart is not about technical smart. It's about people smart. And a lot of that people smart isn't just knowing how to manage a room or how to engage in a party situation to have conversation. It's understanding when to reach out and give somebody a hand when they need it.
Right. And I guess I'm going to challenge you here a little bit. I know you know the answer, but what would you also, those are all fantastic, but what would you also say to that, again, young leader, trying to be the moral leader, trying to do the right thing, Denton? But then again, this noise is coming in constantly from the outside, from, again, lots of mainstream media that is very negative, right? And it might say, hey, do this or do that. And you don't feel that is right in your heart of hearts. How do you have that conversation? How do you push back and say, you know what? All of you are not going down the right path. It's hard to be the moral leader when everybody else is going off path, right? Which is to me not truthful. So when you're not being truthful with yourself, right? So if you know something's not the way to handle something, do you have any suggestions, Denton, on how does that moral leader not go along with the crowd, right?
Well, one of the words that I don't really appreciate, back to words matter, is unique. I've never wanted to be unique, because if you look in the dictionary, it says unique is a one-time opportunity. I want it to be a continuum, right?
Oh.
And so, in a sense, you almost today have to be unique. You have to be able to stand tall and be proud and stand in your own two shoes. But it is a whole bunch about how you present yourself in those moments. Is you can take a stance without being so viral about being pushy, but you can get your point across. And the folks that are doing a fantastic job of being able to be proud of their stance, having a really understanding about their why. It always starts with the why. Why do you want to have this stance before you go off and take a risk and actually do something you wish you hadn't? And so for myself, when I get to those moments, to be really frank with you, I will send an email to myself about what I want to say to that person, and I'll read it tomorrow.
I love it. So take a stance back. I mean, we learn in the emotional quotient, right? EQ, which is better than the IQ, like you've been saying. And then as Lean Six Sigma, I'm a master black belt. So we teach the 5 whys, right? So ask more questions, right? Than doing, because a lot of times, to your point, and I think this is so true that I found in my career, a lot of people don't know why they're doing something. They're just going to go off basis. And then sometimes you just say, hey, Denton, can you tell me what you were thinking? Or can you tell me why you want to approach something this way, or why you think something that way? And then then they back up and they're not as defensive maybe too. But I love your idea of write it down and then come back too.
The other rule of thumb, Lisa, for the young folks that are out there to trying to answer this question, take this very deeply. I mean, you can write this down and put it on a sticky note. It's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems.
I love that. My dad's favorite line for that was, "This too shall pass."
Right.
Yeah,
So our emotions will get us worked up. We will. There's a term that I joke around with some of my teams called confabulation. Confabulation is kind of like a lie told truthfully, and you're like, "What do you mean a lie told truthfully?" Well, sometimes we'll get things caught up in our mind that we believe in, that we don't even bother asking the question to see if it's right or wrong, because we've already made up our mind before we ask the question.
I love it. You believe it. Yeah, they believe it so much that they didn't even realize, they didn't even seek if it was true or not true.
That's right.
I love it. So, well, listen, our show has come to an end, which I'm bummed, but we will have Denton back. He's actually going to join us for another show in the near future here. But this show was about moral leadership, and I hope you enjoyed it. So Lisa Feeley here, signing off with an Accountable Catholic. And thank you, Denton Wilson, for joining us, sir. And we'll see you soon. Come visit us every Thursday night at 5 p.m. Have a great week. God bless.